Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. De Beers, Anglo American and AfriTin make headlines this week. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer unpacks the headlines. Hello Martin.
Hi Mia.
De Beers has decided to close the Voorspoed diamond mine in the Free State.
Yeah, this is quite a thing because this mine goes back to, I think, 1906. But although everyone knew in South Africa that there were diamonds there, coloured diamonds as well, it lay dormant for a century. And then in 2008, Mining Weekly was there when they decided to open it up. And it has always been a difficult mine. I remember Nicky Oppenheimer, who was then the executive chairperson, he was there. And I think at the time he was doing it to make sure that he could show the new government, that De Beers was there to invest. But I don't think that was ever a dripping roast. And you can see it's had a tough time over 10 years. And they were hoping that if they brought in a new operator that had a lower cost model, that this could continue beyond 2020. So they called in Standard Bank and they said, look, find bidders for us. And it was amazing. There were 42 bidders for that. So it was really phenomenal, the number of people who were interested in taking this mine. But come February, so they invited the bids in November, come February, there was a sidewall collapse. Now normally, mines can fix sidewalls collapses, they have those. But this was particularly debilitating because it actually curtailed cut 3. So when the bidders looked at this, there were only 12 left after, and I think several of the bidders then decided they weren't going to bid any longer. I think there were 8 then that still continued, and the final bids, I think, were about 4. But when De Beers went to look at these, they've got quite high criteria. You have to have technical ability and financial ability and regulatory conformance and social appetite. They found that none of the remaining bidders actually met these criteria. So they went back and their board then took a decision that they're going to close this mine. So they have closed mines in the past. They've closed the Oaks and they've closed their sea operations in South Africa. So they're well aware of the implications of that. It's not always cheap to close a mine. Besides that, there are 650 people there. There's also the host communities that they're always doing projects with, and they normally try and keep going with that. So, but the board decided, okay, we're closing. So the chief executive of De Beers Consolidated Mines, Philip Barton, he went across to Pretoria and they discussed this. And during the discussion with the DG sort of brought up the point that the new minister, Gwedi Mantashe, has just put out these statements, how unhappy he is with mine closures and going on care and maintenance and all the job losses, that what the Department of Mineral Resources wants to do is it wants to itself try and, over a 31-day period, just try and find a buyer, try and find a suitable buyer, or try and find a bidder that can come, that was not part of those other bids, that can come forward, because they say that people do come to their offices and ask them, where are the opportunities? So there might have been some potential investor that's come forward, and perhaps they'll now, in the next 31 days, put that bidder in touch with the De Beers Consolidated Mines. And who knows, maybe something will come out of that. But in the meantime, De Beers Consolidated Mines will not stop its closure process, and it's spoken to all its employees and host communities. So it doesn't want them to have too much uncertainty, so they must get into their minds that it's closing, and they will be benefited. They will benefit from all the retrenchment packages, etc. And then, if by some new action they get a bit, of course they'll look into that again.
And Anglo American has drawn a line in the sand for its thermal coal portfolio.
Yeah, thermal coal, it's a bit of an issue in the world at the moment. People are looking at climate change and they're saying that the thermal coal being burnt for power stations is not ideal, and you get the situation of CO2 coming into the atmosphere. So the coal miners have taken this into account. And you could see South 32, which is the Australia and Johannesburg listed coal mining company that was spun out of BHP Billiton. They have indicated that they will be disposing of their thermal coal assets in South Africa because their shareholders are saying, look, it's not an ideal place to be anymore in coal. Now, with Anglo American, they've also drawn a line and saying we've got 14 years life left. Most of our thermal coal is in South Africa. We will not be going into growth ventures with thermal coal. If something compelling comes up, we'll give it another 7-year horizon, but that's about maximum. So they've definitely drawn a line in the sand when it comes to thermal coal. You can see that their appetite there has diminished. They're also taking into account that when they look at good metals and minerals, they tick boxes along, is it green? and is it sort of boosted by the urban environment? Is it part of new technology? And thermal coal doesn't tick any of those boxes, whereas you see that copper does. So they announced a very big new copper project in Peru, which is they're doing in partnership with Mitsubishi, and it'll be $5 billion worth. So it's a very big, long life. Looks like a very good mine. So that particular project ticked all its boxes, whereas if you have to try and tick those boxes in thermal coal, you're not going to get a tick. So they are saying we in there. We've got fantastic thermal coal assets. There's still a lot of potential over the next 14 years. We will do our best there, but we don't see that as a growth area.
And lastly, emerging tin miner AfriTin is on track to meet its targets.
Yeah, it's great, that AfriTin hived out of Bushveld Minerals and put itself on the London AIM, the alternative investment market there, and raised capital with quite a lot of alacrity in November, then again the second time this year, and they're taking those pounds and they're putting them into what looks like a compelling investment, because I can still remember the days when ISCO used to have its tin mine there. ISCO at that stage was state owned, and the only thing that we noted with tin was our jam tins, things like that. That's how we thought tin would be used. But these days tin is green, and it's going into all the different electric vehicle aspects of it, and just like we see big demand for cobalt, we're also seeing big demand for tin. The price is looking responsive to all that, and the timing now with the AfriTin is good, because they've hardly got there, and they're saying in the next quarter, and we're nearly there, the final quarter, by the end of August, we'll be in the last quarter of the year. They say they will be producing tin and selling it into the market. That is pretty quick. So it's no wonder they were able to raise the capital from London, and people even encouraging them to take more capital so that they could accelerate this project, which they're doing. And I think it's going to be a forerunner to bigger things, because you can see the ambition is quite great in tin. And we know that Africa used to be the 4th biggest tin exporter, and it's now fallen back very badly. There are other companies that are exploring in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They have found high-grade tin there, but that is going to be a slower process than the one out at Wyss. And that particular project, we know that it was a big mine in the past, and they feel that with exploration it's going to be an even bigger one in the future, which is going to be great for Namibia, which is our next door country. But also, they've got tin assets in the Bushveld as well that they are looking at. There has been a bit of a hold-up with the permitting and the regulatory side of it, but they've also got ambition to turn the South African tin assets that they've got to positive account. So I think AfriTin has that ambition. It's looking quite big, and we're going to hear quite a lot from AfriTin, I think.
Thank you, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Mia.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.